The phone rang at 1:30 in the morning, and I knew before I even opened my eyes that something was wrong. I'm 67 years old. I spent 34 years as a family court judge in Christchurch, and I've learned that the body keeps its own kind of score. Mine has learned to read silence the way a sailor reads weather by the quality of the air before anything visible arrives. I'd been asleep, maybe an hour, the kind of heavy sleep you earn after a long week, when my mobile lit up the nightstand. I wear glasses now for everything, so the name on the screen was a blur until I reached for them. Poppy, not my son, not his wife, my granddaughter, 9 years old, calling me from a house in Queenstown on a Thursday night that had quietly become Friday morning. I answered before it rang a second time. Poppy, love. What's happened? The sound that came back wasn't quite crying. I've heard children cry in courtrooms, frightened children, confused children, children who'd been let down by every adult who was supposed to protect them. This was different. This was the sound of a child who'd already cried herself past the point of tears. Just breath. Shallow, uneven, like she was rationing air. Grandda. She said it like a full stop. Like my name was the only word she had left in her. I was already sitting up. Already calculating. 34 years on the bench will do that. Your mind starts running the numbers before your heart has caught up. Queenstown to Dunedin. 4.5 hours by car. Flight from Dunedin Airport. First departure around 6. Time now. 1:34 a.m. I'm here, I said. I'm right here, sweetheart. Tell me what's happened. They left, Grandad. I made her repeat it. Not because I hadn't heard, but because some part of me, the part that had believed my son was a decent man, needed another moment before accepting the sentence. Who left, Poppy? Dad and Mum. And Lachie. Her voice cracked on her brother's name. Lachlan. 14 years old. My son. Marcus's biological son, from his first marriage. They went to the Gold Coast. For the holidays. They said I had a school project, but Lachie doesn't have a project, Grandad. He's on holiday too, and Grandad. She stopped, drew a breath that shook on both ends. Why didn't they take me? I've presided over some of the most difficult family matters this country's courts have seen. I've maintained composure through testimony that would unsettle most people. I sat in the dark on the edge of my bed in Dunedin, and I pressed my fist hard against my mouth. You didn't do a single thing wrong, I said, when I trusted my voice. Not one thing. Do you hear me? Then why? I don't know yet, but I'm going to find out. I didn't know it then. But that promise would become the most consequential thing I'd said in 10 years. I rang my neighbor Beverly Cairns at 1:40 a.m. Bev is 72, a retired district nurse, and the only person I know who answers a late call with genuine warmth rather than concealed irritation. She'd watched my dog Biscuit before, when I'd had to travel for depositions back when I still consulted. She picked up on the second ring. Graham, is everything all right? I need someone to look after Biscuit. Few days. Maybe longer. A pause. Then, with the particular gentleness that belongs only to people who've spent decades caring for others. Is it that granddaughter of yours? I didn't answer directly. I told her I'd dropped the key in her letterbox before I left. She told me not to worry about the key. She still had the spare from last time. That's Bev. She's known me 22 years. And she has never once in that time asked a question she sensed I didn't want to answer. Those people are rarer than they should be. Hold on to them when you find them. She were from. They worden the 7 dumb ant. I booked the first flight out on my phone while still in my dressing gown. Dunedin to Queenstown, 6:15 a.m., just under an hour in the air. I've driven that road before, stunning in daylight, unforgiving in the dark, and my back made its opinion known years ago. I'm 67. not 37. Then I went to my study. Bottom drawer of the filing cabinet, behind a folder of old case notes I'd kept, for reasons I could no longer entirely explain. I took out a small digital recorder, the kind I'd used through most of the 90s, before everything moved to cloud storage and smartphones. I held it for a moment. Old instinct, I told myself. I'd decide later whether it was anything more than that. I landed in Queenstown at 7:22 a.m., collected a hire car, a silver Nissan that smelled faintly of pine air freshener in the determined way of all hire cars, and drove 20 minutes to the house on Arrowfield Crescent. It was a nice street, the kind of street where the gardens are maintained just a touch too carefully, where the fences are freshly painted, and the wheelie bins are always put away by Monday evening. Everything looks fine from the outside. The front door opened before I reached the porch. She was in her pajamas, yellow ones, with small white daisies on them. Her hair, dark brown and thick, needed attention. Her eyes were swollen in that particular way that takes hours to produce. She'd been crying long before she called me. She didn't speak. She just ran. I caught her at the bottom of the 2 porch steps, and she wrapped both arms around my neck with a grip that said, "Are you actually real?" I felt her exhale this long, shuddering breath, like she'd been holding it since they drove away. "Granddad's got you," I said. "I've got you." We stayed like that on the front path. The street was quiet. A wax eye was doing something complicated in the bottle brush 2 houses over. Eventually, I pulled back and looked at her properly. "Have you eaten anything?" She shook her head. "Slept," something that wasn't quite convincing. "Right," I said. "Let's go inside. You can show me where everything is, and I'll make you the worst scrambled eggs in the southern hemisphere." She almost smiled. Almost. The house told me things before Poppy said a word. Old habit. You read the room before you read the people. The hallway had photographs. The kind of careful arrangement that says, "Look at our family." I walked slowly. A school portrait of Lachlan, last year's. Marcus and his wife Diane at what looked like Milford Sound, Lachlan standing between them, all 3 squinting into the same bright light. Lachlan's rugby trophy on the shelf by the bathroom door, a framed photo of Lachlan's first day of intermediate, a candid of Lachlan and Diane laughing at something off camera. I counted the photographs. 14 in total along that hallway. Poppy was in 3. One was her first day of school, slightly crooked in its frame, as though hung as an afterthought. One was a group shot, Christmas, where she stood at the far right of the frame, just slightly behind everyone else. The way you stand when you're not entirely sure you belong in the picture. The third was a blurry photo taken at what looked like a birthday party, someone else's, based on the balloons where Poppy appeared in the background, face turned away. 3 photographs. Out of 14, I stood in front of the Christmas photo for longer than I should have. Poppy came and stood beside me. "I don't really like that one," she said. "Why not?" She thought about it. "I look like I'm just passing through. 9 years old. 9 years old." And she had already named the thing I was only beginning to document. I reached up and touched the recorder in my breast pocket. Then I went to make the eggs. They were, as promised, genuinely terrible. Slightly gray, slightly rubbery, but hot, and accompanied by toast and a glass of orange juice. And Poppy ate them with the appetite of a child who hadn't eaten properly in more than a day. Over breakfast, I let her lead. One of the first things you learn in family law, you don't interrogate. You open a door and stand back. "When did they tell you?" I asked. She pushed a piece of egg around her plate. "Wednesday afternoon. After school. Dad said it was a last-minute trip. A reward for Lockie, because he'd done well in his exams." I kept my voice neutral. "And you? Did you do well in your exams?" She looked up at me. "I got an excellence in reading, and a merit in maths." I showed them the report. She paused. "Dad said that was great. But the trip was still just for Lachi. She nodded. What did they say about why you weren't going? That I had a school project due. But Granddad. She set down her fork. The project's not due until term 3. I already finished it. I kept my face still. Lawyer's face. Or rather, judge's face. The one that gives nothing away while it's receiving everything. Have they done this before? I asked. Gone somewhere without you. More than once. She looked at me for a long moment. The kind of look a child gives you when they're deciding how much weight you can carry. Then, she nodded slowly. How many times? She looked at the ceiling. Counted. My stomach tightened with every second of silence. Lots, she said finally. Granddad. Lots of times. I put my hand over hers on the table. I pressed record. Marcus called at 11:30. I let it go to voicemail. He tried again at 12:15. Diane at 12:50. Marcus again at 1:30, leaving a message I would eventually play in a courtroom. I listened to all of them while Poppy slept on the couch, finally and mercifully asleep under a blanket she'd apparently dragged from the hallway cupboard herself at some point in the night. Message 1. Dad, it's Marcus. I'm guessing Poppy called you. Look, it's a bit more complicated than it probably seems right now. Call me back. More complicated. As though leaving a 9-year-old home alone while taking her brother on an international holiday was a matter of nuance. As though the complexity was in my understanding, and not in his choices. Message 2. Dad. Come on. I know you're there. Ring me back. Message 3, Diane. I just want you to know that Poppy was completely safe. Our neighbor Sandra knew to check on her, and we left her plenty of food and her iPad and everything she needed. She was fine. They'd left her with a neighbor on standby. Not staying with a neighbor. Not being looked after by a relative. Just a neighbor who knew to check on her, like a package, awaiting collection. I wrote on my notepad. No designated guardian. Child left without responsible adult present. 34 years of family law. It comes back fast. Message 4. Marcus again. And this one was different. I could hear noise behind him, distant, bright, unmistakable. The particular acoustics of a theme park or resort, somewhere designed to manufacture joy. Dad, look, I need you to not turn this into a whole drama. Poppy's fine. You being there is actually, it works out fine. She loves you. This is good for everyone. We'll be back Monday. We can all talk then. Just keep her settled, okay? She overthinks things. She overthinks things. I set the phone down on the kitchen table. Very carefully. I looked out the window at the garden for a moment. Then I picked up my notepad and wrote 3 words, underlined twice. Pattern. Documentation. Court. Poppy woke at 3:30. Hair everywhere. Pajamas wrinkled. With the look that children get when they've been carrying something heavy for a long time. Old eyes in a young face. I'd seen it in courtrooms more times than I could count, children who'd had to grow up too fast in one particular direction. You're still here, she said. Like she'd half expected otherwise. I told you I would be. She sat up and pulled her knees to her chest. Did Dad ring? He did. Is he angry? The audacity of that question. Is he angry? No, I said. He's not angry. How are you feeling? Hungry. Then, quieter. A bit embarrassed. For calling you. For crying. She was picking at a loose thread on the blanket. Mum says I'm too sensitive. I set my notepad face down on the table. Poppy. Look at me. She did. When you're scared and alone and you call someone who loves you, that's not being too sensitive. That's exactly what you're supposed to do. That's the whole reason granddads exist. I paused. And for the record, I cried once in a courtroom. Actual tears. In front of a full gallery. Her eyes went wide. Did you actually? The stenographer gave me a tissue. She almost smiled. The real kind this time. Come on, I said, standing up. Get dressed. We're not spending the afternoon inside. Where are we going? I hadn't entirely decided. But I knew we weren't staying in those four walls with their lopsided photo gallery and the quiet absence of every trip she hadn't been invited on. Lunch first. Proper food, not my eggs. Then we'll see. Thank goodness, she said. And I laughed the first time since I'd landed. We went to a place on the main street called Harbor Road Kitchen, the kind of restaurant that's been there through several tourist booms and hasn't felt the need to change its fundamental character on account of any of them. Wooden booths. Laminated menus. A cabinet of cabinet cakes that Poppy assessed with genuine seriousness. She ordered a toasted sandwich and a hot chocolate. I ordered the soup because I'm 67 and I've made my peace with who I am. Our waitress, her name tag said Ruth, which is exactly the right name for a woman running a lunch service with quiet competence, brought our drinks and gave Poppy the particular smile that adults give children when they can tell, without knowing why, that the child has had a hard few days. You right, love? Ruth asked her. Poppy looked at me, then back at Ruth. Yeah, I'm with my granddad. Ruth nodded approvingly and left us alone. High praise, I thought. Over lunch, I asked questions the way I'd learned to ask them conversationally, without urgency, each one arriving as though it had just occurred to me. Your school concert, I said. Last November. You had a speaking part, didn't you? Your teacher sent me the program. Poppy's face did something complicated. You saw that? Miss Heathcote emailed me a copy. Said you were brilliant. I had 12 lines, she said, with the careful pride of someone who'd counted. I was the keeper of the archive. She paused. It's a made-up role, but it was important to the story. Were your parents there? The complicated thing happened again. Dad came, she said. He had to leave before the second act. Lachi had a rugby game. A beat. Mum stayed at home with Lachi, in case they needed to leave quickly. I nodded slowly. What about your birthday? June, isn't it? We had cake at home. Said simply, with the smoothness of a sentence told many times. Dad got me an art set. The really good kind. With the proper pastels. She said it with genuine gratitude, which made it worse somehow. Did they do anything special? A party? Or going out for dinner? She looked at her hot chocolate. I heard them talking the night before. Mum said we should take me to that place in Arrowtown, the one with the lanterns. But Dad said she stopped. It's all right. You can tell me. Dad said they'd done Lucky's big birthday at the ski field lodge the year before. And they couldn't do big birthdays every year. It cost too much. She said the last part in a slightly different register. The voice children use when they're quoting adults without quite realizing it. Lachlan's birthday is in September. Poppy's is in June. Different months, different years. But somehow the same budget argument had landed entirely on the adopted child's side of the ledger. I didn't write it down. I didn't need to. Some things burned directly into memory. Poppy, I said. Can I ask you something honest? She looked up. In that house, do you feel like you and Lachlan are treated the same? A long pause. The kind with real weight behind it. Sometimes, she said. Then, more honestly, not really. But Lockie doesn't do it on purpose. It's not him. I believed her. That was clear-eyed of her. Actually, to make the distinction. Can you tell me one more time that's happened? Something different from what you've already told me. She thought about it carefully. That old soul look. Weighing which truth to give me. The photos, she said finally. In the hallway. Have you looked at them? I told her I had. There's one of all of us at Christmas. We went to a photographer in town. Mum chose matching outfits, cream and navy. She got one for herself, Dad, and Lachi. She paused. She forgot to order mine. What did you wear? My school blouse. The navy one. Her voice was careful, sanded smooth. Mum said the order had got lost in the post. It probably did. But in all the photos, I'm the one who looks different. She looked at her sandwich. My friend Ines said I looked like a substitute, like I was filling in for someone else. I thought about that Christmas photo, her at the edge of the frame, cream and navy all around her, and one navy blouse that almost matched. Almost. We got back to the house around 5. I'd stopped at a dairy and let Poppy choose what she wanted. A coloring book, a bag of raspberry jellies, a small pot of metallic paint she'd been eyeing on the shelf for a full minute before she picked it up. She'd done so with the careful restraint of a child who'd learned not to ask for too much. That restraint, that small, careful self-editing broke something in me quietly. While she settled at the kitchen table with her coloring book, I went back to the hallway. I photographed every image, every frame. I counted who appeared in each one, noted the placement, noted the condition of the frames. I opened my recorder. Friday, approximately 5:20 p.m. Arrowfield Crescent, Queenstown. Hallway photograph documentation. 14 photographs displayed. Child Poppy appears in 3. In the Christmas photograph, she is wearing clothing inconsistent with the rest of the family unit. Consistent with a statement from the child that she was not included in the original wardrobe planning. Both photographs in which she appears centrally are positioned at low-traffic visual points relative to the other images. I clicked it off and walked back to the kitchen. "Granddad," Poppy said without looking up. "Is perpendicular spelled with an E or an A in the middle?" "END," I said. She circled something on her page triumphantly. Then she looked up. "Are you going to make me go back when they get home Monday?" She asked it so steadily, like she'd built the whole question on a foundation of expecting the answer to be yes, like she'd made peace with yes already. Somewhere in the night while she was dragging that blanket from the cupboard. "I don't know yet," I said honestly. "But I want you to hear something." She looked at me. "Whatever happens, whatever any adult in your life decides, you are not an afterthought. You are not extra. You are not the navy blouse in somebody else's cream and navy photo." I kept my voice steady. "You are not filling in for anyone. You're not a substitute. You are exactly, precisely who you're supposed to be. And you are worth the whole trip, Poppy. Do you understand me?" She stared at me for a long moment. Her chin wobbled once. She caught it. "Okay," she said quietly. "Okay," I said back. She returned to her coloring. I returned to my notepad. I didn't know it yet, but Monday wasn't going to go anything like Marcus had planned. He rang again at 7:45. This time I answered, "Dad." The relief in his voice was immediate, then careful. "How is she?" "She's here. She's safe." I let a pause sit there. No thanks to anyone currently in Queensland. Silence. "Dad. Marcus." I said his name the way I'd learned to say names in court. Quiet. Final. The kind of tone that tells a person they've left the casual portion of the conversation behind them. "I'm going to ask you one question and I need you to answer it honestly." "Okay. When is the last time Poppy was included in a family trip?" Long pause. Much longer than it should have been. "We took her to." He stopped. "Last summer, another stop. It's been a difficult year, Dad. Financially, and with Lachi's schedule and the school concert," I said. Second act. Empty seats. Silence. The birthday. Cake at home. Lachlan's was a ski lodge. More silence. The Christmas photos. One navy blouse. Complete silence. The kind that has real weight. The kind I'd heard in courtrooms from people who had finally run out of road. Marcus. My voice was level. I'm not calling you a bad person. I'm asking you to look at what I've just described and tell me honestly what you see. He didn't answer for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice had changed. Quieter. Something underneath it, I recognized I'd heard it from people in the witness box who'd finally stopped running from their own reflection. I don't know how it got like this, he said. Not a defense. Not an explanation. Just a man staring at his own choices and finding he couldn't explain the shape of them. I took a slow breath. We'll talk Monday. All of us. In person. Okay, he said. Okay, Dad. I hung up. Sat for a moment in the kitchen of his house, at his table. Then I opened my laptop and began drafting the application. Marcus and Diane arrived home on Monday afternoon. Just after 3. They had airport tans and that careful brightness people wear when they're not sure what they're walking into. Poppy was at the kitchen table. She'd been coloring for most of the morning with a kind of focused calm that told me she was managing something. When the door opened, she didn't look up. That registered on Marcus's face the way a verdict lands you see the moment it arrives. Hey, Possum, he said. She can hear you, I said from the doorway. Whether she answers is up to her. Diane's eyes found mine. Graham. We should talk privately. We should, I agreed. But first, Marcus. There's an envelope in the letterbox. He frowned. Went to check. Came back, holding a standard. A 4 envelope. The kind with a metal clasp. What is this? That, I said, is an application for day-to-day care and guardianship of Poppy, filed Friday morning in the Queenstown family court. I let it settle for exactly 2 seconds. I've been busy. Diane's face went white. You can't. I did. I kept my voice even. 34 years of family law, Diane. I didn't forget everything. Marcus opened the envelope slowly. The way people open things they already understand will change the shape of their life. He read the first page. Then he sat down right there in the hallway, back against the wall, like his legs had made their own decision. Dad. His voice was hollow. I have recordings. Marcus. Photographs. Dates. Every trip. Every concert. Every birthday. A pattern so clear that any family court judge in New Zealand would see it before the second witness was called. I paused. I'm not doing this to punish you. I'm doing it because that little girl called me at 1:30 inches the morning and asked me why. And no one in this house had a good answer. Diane was crying. I handed her a tissue. I'm not a monster. Marcus looked up. His eyes were red. I know, he said, barely audible. I know, Dad. Are you going to contest it? The longest silence I've sat in for a long time. Longer than any verdict I'd waited on. And I'd waited on some long ones. He shook his head. There it was. The hearing was 3 weeks later. Queenstown Family Court. Judge Miriam Ashford presiding, a woman with a reputation for thorough preparation and no patience for adults who dressed up neglect in the language of inconvenience. Marcus attended with no legal representation. He testified for 9 minutes. He said, quietly and without deflection, that he loved his daughter, that he had failed her in ways he was still trying to understand, and that his father was better placed to give her what she hadn't been getting. Consistency. Priority. A front row seat. Judge Ashford granted day-to-day care and guardianship to me. Graham Whitfield. Effective, immediately. I looked across to where Poppy was sitting beside my solicitor, Carolyn Reed, in her best purple cardigan. She was already looking at me when I turned. She didn't cry. She just nodded. The small, serious nod of someone confirming a thing they'd quietly hoped for. So long they'd stopped letting themselves hope for it too loudly. On the drive home, home being my house in Dunedin now, her home too, she was quiet for a long stretch of the Remarkables rolling past the window. The sky over the lake was doing something extraordinary. The late afternoon light turning the water the color of hammered copper. Then, "Granddad, am I your first choice?" I kept my eyes on the road. On the light, on the water, on the road again. "You're my only choice," I said. "You always were." She put her hand over mine on the gear shift. That was enough. That was everything. There's something I've been asked since, by people who've heard bits of this story through the particular telegraph of small communities. They ask how a father lets it happen, how he watches a child slip sideways through the frame of family life and doesn't see it, or sees it and doesn't act. I don't have a clean answer to that. What I can tell you is what I've learned across 34 years of watching families at their most fractured. Neglect doesn't always arrive with intent. Sometimes it arrives through inattention, through the gradual accumulation of small choices that each seem manageable in isolation, until one day you step back and see the pattern they've made. The camping trips taken without her, the birthday scaled down while the other was scaled up, the Christmas outfits ordered for 3, the concert left at halftime, the holiday that became one child's reward and another child's abandonment. No single moment was the whole story. The whole story was the pattern. Children don't need perfection. They don't need grand gestures or expensive holidays. What they need is to know they were thought of, that someone, when they were planning the trip, counted the seats and made sure there was one with their name on it. If a child in your life has learned to ask for too little, to hold their hope carefully, to sand down their hurt until it's smooth enough to carry, that's not resilience. That's a child who's been taught, slowly and without anyone meaning to teach it, that their place in the family is provisional. It's not too late to change that. But you have to actually look at the pattern. You have to be willing to see what's there. Poppy is settled in Dunedin now. She goes to a school 15 minutes from my house, where she has a teacher who noticed within the first week that she was bright and a little guarded, and who has been quietly, steadily making space for her ever since. She has friends. She comes home and tells me about them in that half-distracted way children have, while she's doing something else, eating biscuits, untangling biscuits' lead, looking for her pencil case. She asked me once, a few months in, whether I ever got lonely, living on my own all those years before she came. I told her I hadn't known I was lonely until I wasn't anymore. She thought about that for a moment. Then she went back to looking for her pencil case. I don't know what the rest of the road looks like. But I know that when someone calls at 1:30 inches the morning and asks why you get in the car, you book the flight. You make the terrible eggs and sit at the table, and you listen. And you make sure they know they're not passing through. They're not a substitute. They're not the navy blouse in somebody else's photo. They're the whole point. They always were.